All right, welcome to the release of Displacement Incorporated, how Havenpark Capital and Enterprise Community Partners are eroding affordable housing and how residents are fighting back. My name is Holly Hook. I'm an independent author. I live in Swartz Creek, Michigan, in a manufactured community known as Swartz Creek Estates. And to start with, our community was so happy until we got notices that Havenpark had bought us up. I found out they were investors. They promised big profits squeezed out of senior citizens and low-income families. They raised our rent and fees over 40% in under 2 years, and we've lost so many neighbors, plus our sense of security. We joined with MHAction, a national organization of manufactured home residents, and we began organizing with residents in Iowa and Montana. We were also outraged to discover that the entity that's financing Havenpark is part of Enterprise Community Partners. Enterprise claims to be supporting affordable housing, but they're financing exploitation instead via Bellwether Enterprise. Enterprise could right their wrongs tomorrow, but we have called on them for over a year to help our communities, and they have not taken any action. We're here today to make sure Havenpark, Enterprise, and all the actors profiting off of our communities finally take us seriously. And our first speaker today is Dr. Esther Sullivan, Professor of Sociology at University of Colorado, and she's also the author of Manufactured Insecurity, Mobile Home Parks and Americans' Tenuous Right to Place.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Yes, I'm a professor of sociology, and I've spent the last 12 years of my research really dedicated to the study of manufactured housing and manufactured housing communities. Manufactured housing is this country's largest source of private market affordable housing. Why? Well, because prefabricating a home in a factory means that building a manufactured home costs less than half what it costs to build a site-built home. Now, about 40% of those homes are placed in a manufactured home community. And when these manufactured homes are placed in manufactured home communities, the housing is even more affordable because residents can rent the lot. So the household can either rent the home in the lot or they can break into home ownership, purchasing a home without having to purchase land, which is the most expensive component of any home purchase. This is why 70% of all low-income home purchases, homes sold under $125,000, are manufactured homes. So what does this mean? Really simply put, this means that manufactured homes provide our country's most crucial source of affordable housing, or one of them at least, at a time when we're experiencing a major affordable housing crisis. And these homes are providing shelter to millions of renters, and they're a route to the American dream for millions of lower income homeowners. They're also, quite simply, really great places to live in many cases. I've spent the last 12 years documenting the particular structural inequalities that are faced by residents of manufactured home communities, and I've done that research using geospatial analysis, statistical analysis, and deeply embedded ethnographic analysis, meaning living inside communities full-time over 2 consecutive years. And while I was there to document these structural inequalities, I also documented what many of you here already know: the many joys of living in these communities, the pride and investment of residents and the support of community members. This pride and investment and commitment, it really flies in the face of a dark reality in mobile home communities. Because residents rent those lots where their homes are placed, they lack property rights. And in many states, they have fewer rights than even apartment renters. This makes them uniquely vulnerable to exactly the kind of practices that MHAction has documented in this report that we're all going to hear more about right now. And while these practices are just egregious in these Havenpark communities, and while it's shocking to see that this is being underwritten by an affordable housing nonprofit like Enterprise Communities, we need to remember that also this struggle is a far too common reality in manufactured home communities across the US.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. Our next speaker is Wes Edmo, who is MHAction's Indigenous Peoples Advocacy Director.
Good afternoon. My name is, My name is Wesley Edmo. I'm a enrolled member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes of Idaho. I'm an MSW by practice, and today I'm going to present you with a story about an American Indian elder male who has been negatively impacted by Havenpark and their practices. But however, in the beginning, to qualify up front, I believe people need to understand American Indian people went through a very difficult period in policy called the Indian Removal Act of the 1870s and 1830s, and many of them still suffer from generational trauma. Um, this gentleman wants to remain anonymous out of fear of retaliation by this predatory manufactured homeowner, Havenpark. He lives in a park in Great Falls, Montana. He is a 70-year-old Indian elder male, and he's enrolled in the Turtle Mountain Chippewa tribe. He has worked all of his life. He's raised 6 children and now is retired. He said he's disabled and on fixed income. And he says, you know, the little bit of land that I've been renting, I've tried over the years to keep it nice and plant flowers and have kept the lawn cut. He removed, he said that he moved into this home park, mobile home, manufactured home park 15 years ago and reported at that time the land beneath the home was affordable then. The following are the negatives he's identified. About a year ago, he moved into Havenpark. This park rented or managed by Havenpark. And he says, the rent, he says, I can barely afford it anymore. The old management had gradual increases over the 15 years I was here. And now it's just totally outrageous. I can't even afford to water my grass and flowers. And he pauses and says, in fact, I'm afraid to take a shower since now they have put meters on and I'm afraid I won't be able to afford my water bill. He says, every time I turn around, this new owner is creating new fees. And this is very stressful because I live on fixed income. I can't even enjoy life in my retirement anymore. And as an American Indian, our people went through a traumatic event prior, and now it feels as though I am being removed again. Thank you. That is his story.
Okay, thank you very much for that story, Wes. Now we will hear from Linda Bates, who lived in a Havenpark owned community in Iowa.
Hi, my name is Linda Bates. I moved into Midwest Country Estates when they owned it in 2017. I received a settlement from my prior company that I worked for. It wasn't large, it was small, but I was able to pay cash for my home and a car. And I thought that was the one thing I wanted to make sure: no car payment, no house payment. Lot rent was $300. So I loved the lot I was on. I immediately started maintaining, putting flowers, bushes, lilacs, things that I loved. That when I sit on my porch swing, I can enjoy when there's nice weather. That was all taken away. And I tried to sell the home, but everybody had heard about Havenpark in the papers. So unless they could afford to pay the 5 to 8 or the 10 to 12 to move it, depending on double wide or single, that they couldn't do that. So, in the end, it ended up at the last minute going to a slumlord. So, and I had very little money in my pocket. But I after listening, I want to say that Havenpark was very manipulative and devious about how they went about getting you out of there. And I had my daughter and my grandchild living with me and had to support them. So I lost the whole settlement. That was my one chance in a lifetime to have that. And they ripped that away from me. And this has been hard, repeating this story over and over again. So I pray and hope that somebody can get something done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda. I know it's a hard story to tell. Linda's story shows us the turn families get thrown into. How outrageous is it that Linda, she made all of her payments and she still lost her home. She lost her entire retirement and all of her savings that she had just poured into her home. And next up, we have Mazahir Salih, Iowa City Council member and director of the Center for Worker Justice of Eastern Iowa.
Hi, I would like to read a story for someone who would like not to mention his name. I live in Sunrise Village in Iowa City, and I have lived there with my family for 6 years. The previous owner was very kind, and every week he would see if we needed anything. Months ago, we received a letter saying that Havenpark bought our park. Now our rent is being raised and new fee has been added without explanation. Before our rent was $325 a month, and now it is $499 per month. Adding to that is $15 for dog, $18 for garbage, and $13 for water. And even the water is not clean. The water is from the well, and we buy water to cook and drink. We have not been able to speak to the new company. We call and no one answers. Many families are unhappy and have left, but I don't want to leave. Having back treatment and rent increase are pushing out Mexican American family. We are working family, but when people do not have paper, they struggle to find work. We need to have a stable place to live. That's what the story. As an executive director of the Center for Worker Justice, I think a story like this, one from Sunrise Park, are sad and true. This disproportionately affected immigrants and people of color. Company like Havenpark buy out local family-owned mobile home park and mistreated their residents, and they are treated as nothing more than livestock that the company can bleed for their saving more profit. It is time we acknowledge this crisis for what it is. It is the abolition of affordable housing for Iowans across the board and the displacement of working class immigrant and undocumented family. This is just another unaddressed issue that contribute to the ongoing discrimination against immigrants in the United States. In the place of work, we see immigrants shovel into unskilled labor, job due to language barrier and not accepting their credential from another country. In financial institutes, we see undocumented immigrants pass over home loan and denied based access to checking and saving account based on no credit or no social security number. ICE officials actively searching for immigrants to detain and ship away to places they have either never been there. Now, in this case, we are seeing immigrants being pushed out from the only place they have is still safe, their home. They have nowhere left to turn and nobody to stand with them against this injustice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mazahir. Now we will hear from Latoya Goff, who is a former veteran.
Yes, how about I unmute that? I'm a Gulf War veteran. I work at the VA as a medical support system. We are the backbone of the VA. The mobile home crisis affects veterans and civilians alike. We're now caring for the Vietnam vets who are aging and they need accessible, stable, and safe housing. Vets come home broken from the grind of military life and the horrors of war. They don't need to worry about becoming one of the legions of homeless in this country. Mobile homes are not covered under VHA home loans unless the vet owns the land. It's risky. It's reprehensible that the majority of states don't have regulations to protect housing from raiders. Housing needs to be removed from the clutches of corporate loophole snatchers and real estate cons. Housing needs to be reestablished as a basic human necessity, like clean air and water. Affordable and easily accessible mobile housing can improve a veteran's care just by being within 30 miles of the VA. The last thing a vet needs to is to become prey for greedy bloodsuckers and, as stated before, slumlords. Vets and their families need reliable housing and job stability to heal. Lack of housing puts their very existence in jeopardy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, LaToya. Next up, we have Iowa State Representative Christine Bohannon.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christina Bohannon. I'm a state representative in Iowa. I represent District 85, which is largely Iowa City. And so I just want to tell a little bit about my own background and then some legislation that we've been working on. I was born and raised in a mobile home. I grew up in a very rural part of Florida. And one of my biggest memories of my life, the happiest memories, was when we got our double wide trailer, which we thought was terrific, and I had more space. And so, that's how I grew up. And then when I went to college, I actually lived in a mobile home the first few years of college as well. And I say that because I think a lot of people don't think about all the different kinds of people who live in manufactured housing or mobile home communities. And so we've heard a lot of people here today from all kinds of different backgrounds, all different kinds of work, who live in mobile homes. And so, this was my college. I lived in a mobile home. My parents bought me a mobile home, and that was all they could contribute to my college education. I worked through college and had scholarships and things like that to pay for all my tuition and books and everything. But the mobile home was really my parents' contribution. And so if that had gotten taken away from me, I would have had nothing. I wouldn't have been able to continue with my college education. And so, I lived in a mobile home park in college. The rent kept going up and up. And it became very difficult. Even a $15 rent raise every month was really hard. $25, another $30. Every time it kept increasing. And I definitely, there were times when I had to, live on plain noodles for about a week. That happened sometimes when I was waiting for my next scholarship payment or something like that. And so it was tough. But I'll tell you, it's nothing compared to what we're seeing now with these mobile home parks. I mean, we are seeing rent go up by hundreds of dollars, sometimes doubling within just a few years. And that is devastating. We're talking about, in my district alone, Maza here just mentioned, she's in my district, we have mobile home parks where the rent have gone up by hundreds of dollars. People have been evicted for no reason at all. And we're talking about immigrants, we're talking about people of color, veterans, disabled people, low-income families with children, single moms who have moved out of abusive situations. I've heard all of these stories as I've been in the legislature. So, this is something we have to take action on. In the state legislature, I worked on legislation this session that would give rights to residents of mobile home parks, including, limits on the number of times and how much rent can be increased, limits on eviction without cause, provisions dealing with utilities and things like that. And so, this is something we need to work on, and we're seeing some movement. I want to encourage everybody that we are seeing some movement. The last couple of years in Iowa, we've actually seen more and more legislators get on board with this legislation, including in the Republican Party. And so we need to keep that pressure on. And so I really just want to encourage people to keep with this work. It's so important for people of all backgrounds. And, we are seeing movement. So, keep up the pressure. I'm really thankful for groups like the Manufactured Housing Association and, Maza here and Center for Worker Justice and other people from my district, Candy Evans, and other people who have been really tireless advocates for this. And I know this is hard to tell this story over and over. It's hard to live through and hard to say it over and over, but it matters. It really is making a difference. And I really appreciate how many people are here who are telling their stories and showing that all kinds of different people from different backgrounds live in mobile homes and they need help. So thank you very much for doing this. It's critical. Keep it up. And I'm really hopeful that in the next couple of years, we're going to see some movement. So thank you all so much. And thanks for having me.
All right, thank you very much, Representative Bohannon. Next up, we have Montana State Senator Brian Hoven.
Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I'm a Republican state senator. I'm a free market capitalist, believe in the free enterprise system, and I own a small business that employs 36 people, and I've been in business for 42 years. I believe in making money. but I do not believe in making money off the backs of the poor, the elderly, people with disabilities, low income. And that's exactly what Havenpark is doing. Havenpark needs to be reined in. They give capitalism a bad name. And the state legislatures need to pass two bills. First and foremost is requiring park owners to provide notice when they're going to sell or change land use. And the ideal situation is they should give 90 days notice, and they can't sell or change, or they can't sell without the residents having an opportunity to purchase. And the second thing is, if they're going to change land use, they need to give the residents 2 years notice. The second bill that they need to pass is the Bill of Rights, as the previous representative from Iowa suggested. That needs to happen. Now, the solution that both Republicans and Democrats can agree on is the sale of these parks to the residents. Now, that's been going on for 40 years. It works. I've seen it here in Montana, and that it does work. And so Enterprise really needs to stop supporting Havenpark and start supporting NeighborWorks Montana and ROC of America, and providing money to these organizations so that they can get this, finance the sale of the parks to the residents. Most owners would prefer to sell to the residents, but they don't know that the residents have the wherewithal to buy from them. It never occurs to them. So that's part of the message that needs to be gotten to the residents. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Senator Hoban, for your input. Next up, we have a video from U.S. Representative Cindy Axne.
Thank you to MHAction for having me and for all the work you do to put this report together and organize. The stories in this report of Havenpark's practices are horrifying, and I would like to thank Linda Bates for sharing her story of what happened to her in Waukee. Unfortunately, we've seen Havenpark do this too many times to too many people, and it's good to see representatives working on this across the country. As a member of Congress, one of the most disappointing things for me to see are these predatory practices being backed by federal financing, and that's something that simply can't continue. Last month, I asked Enterprise Community Partners at a hearing about exactly why one of their subsidiaries was financing Havenpark, while Enterprise has a mission of supporting affordable housing, and will be following up to see what changes they're willing to make. In the meantime, today I'm introducing two bills to make sure that federal funding goes to those manufactured housing communities that actually provide affordable housing. First, the Manufactured Housing Tenants Bill of Rights would require that companies that get federal backing through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac have to provide basic rights for tenants, including the right to a renewable lease, eviction protections, and the right to sell your home without moving it. This is intended to lay out basic rights for tenants, what everyone should have, and not as the limit of what can be done. So I would urge all of you to keep pushing for more. In the meantime, at a minimum, we shouldn't be providing federal financing without these. Now, for those who are willing to commit to more, I'm introducing the Manufactured Housing Community Preservation Act, and that would provide grants to help resident-owned groups, nonprofits, and others buy MHCs if they're willing to preserve them as affordable housing that's managed for the benefit of the residents for at least 20 years. We need to support those who will truly be responsible park owners, and at the same time, we need to cut off the support that's currently backing predatory landlords like Havenpark. The work you're all doing to highlight what's going on here is critical, and I want to thank you for that and for having me here today.
Okay, a special thanks to Cindy Axne for her input. And next up, we have Linda Junn with the Americans for Financial Reform. And we have Candy Evans from North Liberty in Iowa to help us map out some solutions.
Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Junn, and I am the Senior Policy Counsel at Americans for Financial Reform. AFR is a coalition of over 200 groups that was formed in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. Today, we continue to work to lay the foundation for a strong, stable, and ethical financial system that works for all people. Like many people here today at AFR, we believe a safe, affordable home is a basic necessity. And as we've heard from other speakers, where we live affects our health, our education, and many other opportunities. Home also provides safety and security, which is especially true and important during the COVID-19 pandemic today. Over the past several years, we have seen private equity, hedge funds, and other corporate investors take over millions of homes. By treating housing as a profit-maximizing investment, corporate investors erode affordability of our neighborhoods and tear people from their homes. As we've heard today, manufactured home communities are particularly hardest hit. Havenpark Capital and other firms like them are displacing longtime residents with drastic increases in rent and fees, and really ruining affordable housing wherever they go. Like Representative Axney said, we need all levels of government to take action to rein in corporate investors from extracting wealth from low-income communities and destabilizing neighborhoods. At the federal level, we need Fannie and Freddie to stop backing loans that enable corporate actors to take over manufactured housing communities. We really need them instead to use their powers to ensure landlords adopt robust tenant protections as a condition of any financing they get through the government. And more importantly, to open up more opportunities and financing for residents, government entities, and nonprofit organizations to be able to purchase manufactured home communities. At the state and local level, we need government officials to meaningfully protect seniors and families from rent gouging, harassment, evictions, and neglectful maintenance. We need to find ways to give residents and the owners who care about them a real chance to purchase their communities before predatory investors take them over. And we're grateful for Iowa and Montana representatives here today from our elected officials who are already doing a lot on that front. We all need to work together to safeguard affordable housing from corporate investors and allow all families to thrive. We call on Havenpark, enterprise community partners, and more local, state, and federal officials to work with all of us here today. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Candy Evans, and the home I own and I've lived here for over 20 years is in a Havenpark property, and it's known as Gulfview Mobile Home Park in North Liberty, Iowa. We need Enterprise, the backer of Havenpark, to act today to stop Havenpark abuses. They must take action now to do these things. Number one, keep our communities affordable and immediately stop the rent gouging. Within the first 2 years of Havenpark purchasing our manufactured park, our rent has increased 60%. For those of us here that are retired or on a fixed income or just low income, hard choices had to be made. People had to decide, do I pay rent or pick up my medicine? Do I pay rent or get groceries? Second thing, keep us in our homes, especially during COVID when so many have suffered. Havenpark is continuing with evictions. Third, make our communities safe and healthy with community maintenance. Many of the areas of our park are pitch dark at night. Other communities suffer with water they cannot drink. Fourth, treat residents respectfully and fairly. We have reached out to Enterprise and they have not taken any action. They are taking Havenpark's word over ours. So now we are asking Enterprise to come and witness the truth for themselves. CEO Priscilla Almodovar and members of the board, we invite you to come. Come to 6 Havenpark properties. Visit Iowa, Michigan, Montana, and see what we are living for yourselves. We will even buy your plane tickets. We need everyone here to stand with us. We ask you to call Enterprise and let them know they need to come witness firsthand what is happening in our communities. Grab a pencil and a piece of paper. Holly's going to give you a phone number for Enterprise. You have all been so gracious to afford us some of your time today, and I want to thank you for hearing our stories. I want to ask you to stand with our seniors and our families that desperately need this help. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda and Candy. So we're gonna round this out by let's take that action today. Can you take out your cell phones and dial 212-284-7178 and tell Enterprise that they must come to Havenpark owned communities in Iowa, Michigan, and Montana and witness firsthand what's happening to our homes and communities. And the number should be right there on your screen, 212-284-7178. And demand that Enterprise's CEO and board chair visits Havenpark owned communities in person to hear directly from residents. And I'll be taking my phone out to call as soon as we say goodbye. And I'm calling on you to do the same. So write down that number, 212-284-7178. And before we go today, I would like to say a special thank you to all of our speakers for sharing their heart-wrenching stories and their calls for action. And I want to send a thank you to everybody for joining us today and standing with seniors and families.